Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Camera's in the doorway for a reason today. Today I'm watering, and that is the video fundamentally. So if you're not interested in that, you have to bear in mind I have to pick up all my, it's the pots I'm watering, I have to pick up each plant and bring it over here to water it. The idea of putting the camera over this side is that the boingy noise, which upsets two people, I think it is, maybe three, out of everybody that watches, is farthest away from the camera, so should make the least amount of noise. So I do try. But yeah, as I pick up each plant, if there's anything interesting, I can obviously stop and the camera is just here. That's that. So that's what I'm doing. I get out a shelf full of plants and water them. I can stop the camera while I put them back and then start again while I move on to the next shelf. So we won't have me going missing all the time, just some of the time. That's that. While I'm at it, big thanks to everybody who's gone over to the new gardening channel, Roger's New Garden. Subscriber numbers are heading up towards 300 already. I'm well pleased, absolutely well pleased. We will hopefully get to the magic 500 relatively soon. What's going to hold the channel back is the watch hours, obviously. To get up to 3,000 watch hours is going to take an awful long time, considering we're only at around 30 or 40 at the moment. It's a long time to get those watch hours up. So any help you can offer by, you know, letting that playlist run in the background, not using up your phone data obviously. If you've got a laptop or something and you're busy around the house or in your own garden, you can always put that playlist on and let it run. It clocks up the watch hours. YouTube doesn't know you're not sat there watching it, so it would help. It's going to take quite a long time. It could take 6 months to get 3,000 watch hours. I don't know. I've just done a garden update on that channel, channel update, sorry, on that channel. So if you want to pop over and watch that, it's basically that channel is telling a story. It's telling the story of what this garden was like when I moved in, by using the videos I've already recorded, loading chronologically in order until we get up to date. The next two videos on that channel are where I started the heavy work, you know, the heavy duty pruning and everything. And that basically takes us up to the end of 2022. So that channel will start loading up, you know, what I call the better stuff, where we started planting up the garden, getting the bonsai staging sorted out, doing some design on the garden and thinking about how it's going to look in the future. So those videos are still to come. And while we're talking about subscribing, are you watching here and not subscribed? I know where you live. Seriously though, if you're not subscribed to this channel, it would be nice if you did so. We are still trying to grow this one after all. I know it's not a new one like the other one is, but you know, we still need it to progress. Right, so I'm going to twist the camera around so I won't, you know, you can look at some plants instead of this ugly puss, and we'll see how we get on. And as I said, that is the video for today, me watering my pots. And I do it pretty quickly, but I will stop on each plant as it passes the camera just to have a quick look, and anything interesting like a new spike or something, we can pause on that plant for a bit, and then I'll stop the camera while I put that shelf's worth away, and we'll see how far we get. We may not get all the pots done before I get fed up or run out of feed and water. For those that are interested, I always use RO water. That had MSU in it to a TDS of 155, and then I took it up to a TDS of 200 with calcium nitrate, which gives things a good nitrogen kick with the calcium to back up that nitrogen. High nitrogen on its own can produce floppy growth. You know, it hasn't got the backbone in it. The calcium gives it that. So I'll move the camera around, point at the deck, and we'll get going. Somewhere about there so you can sort of see what I'm up to. I think it looks about right, and we'll make a start. As I said, I need to get through this. This is a Nellie Isla. It's the yellow one that I got last year, and it has a nice new growth coming, so nothing more to say about that. Let's get some water on the go. That new growth should help with the root system, although it has got some roots. It's not rootless, like a lot of Nellie Islas are when you buy them. Well, this was when I bought it, but the new growth put up some new roots. Oncidium species this time. This is Cheromorphum. New growths all over the place, and we have a spike. So that will come into bloom now. So I didn't know that was there. That's a just noticed thing. That's what happens when you water. It's the first time you pick the pot up for a while. This has got plenty of roots on, new growths, and now we have a spike. So we will see those blooms. Well, actually in a while. That one is a bit like Twinkles. Takes a while to get the new growths going. Another Oncidium species. This is Chrysomorphum. So what was the other one then? What did I say it was? I said it wrong. That's Cherophorum, the previous one. This is Chrysomorphum, if I said it wrong. Two strong new growths on here, which will eventually produce new roots. They're not doing it yet. It's a strange process on this plant. It produces its roots incredibly late. That's Mojo grizzling again. He's going through his routine. He sits at the bottom of the stairs and yowls, and then he'll get up near the top of the stairs but not at the top, and he'll yowl again, and then he'll go to sleep for the rest of the morning. That's just how he is at the moment. Hannah doesn't believe he's miserable. He's just got into a habit of doing that. So it's more of a habit than he's upset about anything. Yesterday and the day before he didn't go upstairs. That's Dendrobium amabile, recently repotted, doing absolutely nothing at the moment. Yeah, the last couple of days he's actually stayed downstairs and not gone upstairs. Now the three Paphiopedilums were watered 2 days ago. They won't get watered today, and that was because they were heading towards dryness. So that's the most recently repotted. This is Blackjack, and the bud is pushing on quite nicely now, so very visible. So that one's going to bloom in there. Well, it's not going to hurry itself, is it? And then the other one, the new growth's coming on. So as I said, they were watered out of sequence because they'd got dry, because they were relatively recently repotted. So that's the reason behind that. This is Tetragonum, and that has a nice strong new growth pushing up, looking okay. Not very good roots on this, but there are some. That hasn't long come off its mount, I don't believe. It's one of those that wasn't doing very well and got mounted, but nice strong new growth with new leaves to come, so doing okay. Next one is, this is Oncidium Tahitian Dancer, intergeneric type. Quite a lot of Sotoanum in it, I believe. Two nice new growths coming, one here, one here. They will bloom, or at least one of them will. Roots not brilliant, but I've seen worse. The new growths are pushing out new roots, so it's going to be fine. And the new growths with their new roots shouldn't be all shriveled like the old ones because it lost its root system. Often the case when you buy these intergenerics. That's that one. Next we have one that is doing nothing, is not doing very well. Oh God, I don't believe it. This is Dendrobium trigonopus, a notoriously difficult dendrobium to keep going, and I've just said it's not doing anything. I'll rephrase that. It's got a nice new growth coming. That's the first sign of life on this for some time, but with the new growth we should get roots, because the roots were appalling. That was bought in flower from Trey at Malvern last year, not this year. So we have a new growth. So it looks like it's going to make it okay. I was beginning to think that was just going to stall, drop its leaves and then die, as they are. Not easy to keep going, that one. Another dendrobium coming up. This is Roy Tokunaga, and this is, I think the expression is, it's doing roots. It's doing roots. And it also has a nice strong new growth, and the previous new growth is maturing, so this one's doing okay. That is a Latoria type, so it's not going to do very well in my winter, but it survived last winter and now it has a new growth. It never bloomed for me, this one, since I got it. Maybe it will one day. It's getting its strength with those roots and a new growth. There might be enough strength there now to actually bloom. Right, now these two I actually water and put them back because I've run out of room up there. This is Cambria, so a no idea, it was just labelled Cambria, not Cambria so and so, just Cambria. It's got nice new growth coming, one here, and it's growing some roots. It has absolutely gorgeous blooms, that one, so it's okay. As intragenerics go, not a brilliant root system, but it's growing some, and it's got 3 new growths pushing on, 4 new growths pushing on at the moment. Just seen another one, so it's doing okay. That one, and then the last one on this shelf before I break off is a difficult one because it doesn't like to come out of its big black pot. So what we have to do with this one is get the pliers and grab hold of it, bend the pot and grab hold of it. It just sticks, it won't come out. It's because it's quite heavy, that's really why. You're determined to fall on the floor, aren't you? You've made your mind up. Dead leaf, I'll put that over there. Now this is one that's pushing its luck for being kept because it's an Aliciara, and it keeps growing new growths and pushing some roots out, but then it just stalls and it won't grow on. It won't get up to its full size. But we'll see what it will do this time round. But it is pushing new growths out and there are some new roots in places. It feels really heavy. I've got a feeling that might need coming out of its pot. No, it doesn't. It's okay. I'll just water around the edge of the plant. Because the pot feels heavy, it might be a bit wet, but it doesn't look it. It's a funny one, that is. But because of its weight, it tends to go inside that black pot and refuses to come out. In fact, I will deal with that now. What we'll do is we'll take it out of its pot again, and we'll put one of those in upside down and pop it back in. Now the rim is a lot nearer the top where it's wider and I'll be able to get hold of it. So that's that. Right, I'll break off now before we move to the next shelf. Right, first one on the next shelf is Dendrobium conico. This was almost lost, but it's grown what are in effect kikis, which have turned into nice growths. So it's got energy in it, but there's still nothing growing from the base of the plant. And a lot of that was lack of roots on the mount. And it was put in a pot to keep it moister and hopefully get some activity from the base of the plant, which is yet to happen. But it's not lost, in as much as we have the kikis. If the worst comes to the worst, I can separate those off and start a new plant in effect. That's that one. Next we've got our hibiki, which has been recently repotted and is pushing out new roots. There are reasonable roots in the pot and our flower buds are progressing, so we will get some blooms on here soon. The little clusters are down in the centre of the plant. So it's coming on. It's okay. I've had difficulty in the past keeping these going. I think this is my third or fourth one, and I'm hoping this is the one. It actually hangs in there. I said I've had trouble keeping this one going in the past, and I've never really worked out why. Seems to do okay for some time, and then just keels over. Just stops, and that's its lot. So the coffee's in the way now, we'll move it. Ugh. Right, next one on this shelf is a funny one. It's a prosthetic. Sorry, there's a pot just fallen over. It was leaning against this one. I'll deal with that in a minute. It's a prosthetia, but this one was actually named with the new name for prosthetias, which is Anachelium, and it's Pachycephalum, and it's got new growths and roots coming out all over the place. We will get some blooms on here down the line, but it's not doing it yet. So at the moment it's a good plant, it's a pot full of roots, and yeah, it's doing fine, but it's not blooming yet. It has bloomed in the past, so it's just a matter of keeping this going. Quite a bit of mould on the leaves on this one. I just wipe it off as I come across it. Many plants have none. Some seem to have quite a bit. Don't know why, but it's around, you know, it's on the plants. So that's where we are with that one. Mojo playing again. Right, I'll do this one next. This isn't the one that fell over. This is a black hair type that's doing very well. Two nice strong new growths, one here, one round here, and a nice pot full of roots. So I've lost a lot of my black hair types. Sorry about that, I dropped the... I've lost quite a lot of my black hair types, but I've got a couple that are hanging in there, and this is one of them. It's doing okay. Not actually been repotted since I got it, this one. It's still in the media it was in, but it was repotted by Marius, who's the owner of the National Dendrobium collection. So in theory he should know what he's doing. And I'm joking, he does know what he's doing. I haven't seen him for a while. I'm only going to see him at Bournemouth Orchid shows from now on, because I'm not a member of that society anymore. Right, now this is the beast that fell over. For reasonably obvious reasons, it's that tall. These canes are 1 metre long. And it's a top heavy plant, and currently in bloom on the top of one of the canes, so obviously makes life difficult, and it's in quite a small pot, and it's currently quite dry. Black hair type again, pushing up a lovely new cane. Doing well. And it's started to do a lot better since the scale are gone. Black hair types suffer quite badly with scale, and they object to systemics. They don't like systemics at all. Right, Mojo's waiting to go out now, so we'll do that. Come on then. And that's the end of that shelf, so we'll switch off. Then we've got some big stuff to come next. Right, we're on to the Coelogeny shelf now. This is Lawrenceana. It's doing new growths basically. We've got one here, another one here, a bigger one here, and a smaller one here. So we've currently got 4 new growths on the go on here. This one is a strange one. It puts up a flower spike with a bud on it, and it can sit there with that bud for months and months and months. So much so that last time it happened, I thought it had blasted and almost cut it off. And then it suddenly opened. and the bloom was magnificent. So it's one of those, you've just got to be patient, but it does help if you know that, and I didn't at the time. As I said, I nearly cut it off, so we nearly lost it. Right, next one. Ooh, another biggie that's dumping a leaf at the moment. It was on an old cane. Now this is Morelliana, no L in it, and it's a big plant. It's quite desiccated on parts of the old plant, but then these were the last two growths, and they're nice and plump. And then underneath those we have a new growth here. So I'm trying to point the thing at you and still look at what I'm doing on the screen. So here there's a new growth down in there, and then there's another one here coming up. So we've got two more new growths, as you know, onto the matured ones. In fact, yes, there's three. So it's doing okay. Came from Burnham's division off of one of their huge monster specimen sized plants, and this is the basic species. So this is an unawarded version of the species. Nonetheless, blooms are quite spectacular. It's classed as one of the large whites. So there's a set of them. I think there's about 5 or 6. Ooh, right, next one is this is Natida. This is doing okay. This is pushing up some new roots, but it climbed. So I put some moss around the top so that the roots had something to get into, because this has quite a fine root system. But nonetheless, the new growths here and here that are progressing, so they're doing okay. Another one that came, well, in fact I think all my coelogenes came from Burnham's. That's that one. And then the last coelogeny, the last one on this rack, was a mistake. I had to come away from a visit to Burnham's with something, you know, in bloom, so that I had some new orchids and support the orchid nursery and Sarah and Arthur and all that. So that's what I do when I visit. Even if I don't really want any more plants, I still get some for those reasons. And that was what I came away with. And then when I got home, I realised it was nearly a duplicate, but it isn't quite, because this again is Morelliana, but it's the variety Magnifica, and it's an awarded plant. It's actually got an RHS award. An awarded version, which means it's a bigger and better blooms. That's all it means really. We've got some new growths coming. There's one coming up here, another big one here, and there's this one maturing round here. So it's doing okay. Doing okay. Another one hasn't been repotted since I got it, but it hadn't long been potted up by Arthur at Burnham's, and he said they've rooted in well. You know, they're in new media, they should be able to sit in the pot for some time. He said you'll probably end up having to repot it because it's outgrown its pot rather than the media's gone. So that's that one, and that's that rack done. So we move on somewhere else now. Right, so this is my biggest rack now. It's a double rack, and it's the top one over in what is the far left corner, looking at it from the door. It's got the most plants on. It's a medium high shelf, quite bright, and it has a lot of plants on it, so it's a big one. When we get to the end of this, I'll see how I am with the feed, because I don't particularly want to mix any more up today. So if I run out of water and feed, I'll stop at that point, and then we'll carry on again tomorrow. Right, oh sorry, Kingianum kikis, donated to Hannah, new growth there in the pot on that one, and a new growth on that one, 2 new growths on that one, and roots. So Kingianum kikis, coming on. They're just sat in moss at the moment. That's all. They're not potted up. I might get round to that sometime. It would be quite a good time to pot them up while the new growths are new, so that the new roots get into that. And that wasn't Kingianum, and I've forgotten what it is, which is bad news. This is the Kingianum, I believe. Yeah, I forgot, I should have put labels on them. They're kikis. This is chucking two up there, halfway up that came with no leaves. From the base of that came with no leaves is another one growing, so that's a nice basal growth. And then over here we have a new growth as well, so kikis. I'm pretty sure that is the Kingianum. But it could be the other one. It's dangerous because when we're talking about the Kingianum kikis were given to Hannah at Wessex Orchid Show. That was just a friend that said, yeah, you can have these. The others, I don't know what they are, but I need to know because they could be off a plant that's failing. They may be its only hope. And it would be nice to know what it is. Right, next one is a pot full of kikis. I know what these are. Don't need a label for these. This is a nobly type. All of these were roughly this size, although they have grown on a bit, as kikis that came off the plant, producing nice new roots on top of what they already had, which were quite good roots. Potful, absolute potful. Here's an invitation for you, Carol. You have made an inkling that you might, via a stopover, come to an Orchid Society of Great Britain meeting. If you let me know in advance which meeting that is, I'll see if Lynn wants to come as well and come and meet you there. And then you can have your pot full of kikis. Without any postage or wrapping up or any of that cobblers. There's an invite for you. It's just my luck that she doesn't actually watch this video. But yeah, that's an absolute potful of what is a large nobly type that has huge blooms. The blooms on that are very impressive. They're a bit like Comet King, only nearly twice as big. I think Trouble wants to come in. Come on then. Let's see if we can do this without too much noise. It's another time that he yowls when he comes in from outside. Every time. It's just a habit. Right, this is... I've forgotten. It's got a label on it. This is Harveyanum. Almost lost. Almost lost. And now it's coming back. And we have roots going down in the pot. We have new growths. It's going to be fine. I really was worried about that. It sat on a mount doing nothing for an incredibly long time. It's been potted up with the magic small bark perlite and sphagnum moss, and it's growing. So that's saved, which is good because that's gorgeous blooms on that. Another one that's in the same position. This is Primulinum variety Laos. Sat on a mount doing nothing, put in the magic formula, and it's growing. Nice new growths. Not a lot of root activity on this one, but we've got the growths. They will produce roots eventually. So again, saved. You don't want water in the crowns of those tiny little new growths. That's the last thing we want. Although it's not sunny today, but it's warm. Temperature's quite high considering there's no sun. We've got an airflow coming up from the south, so warm air flow. So I've got a couple of dead leaves on this one that I want off. And then this is another one of those that did nothing for a while. This is Dendrobium. Oh God, can't read it. It's one of Lynn's labels. Convolutum. And again, it potted by Lynn. I haven't touched it since, and it sat there doing nothing for a very long time. And now we've got new growths coming, and out of those new growths are some roots. So again, it will be fine. I'm not sure what that type is. It might be one of those that's in a section that nobody's ever heard of, so I don't bother too much with the sections, apart from the well-known ones. That's that one. Nearly finished with the smaller ones now. Now we're on to the bigger stuff. This is quite a mouthful. This is Dendrobium Aussie's Sweetness crossed with a species Tapiniense, and it's a bit of a beast. It always was a little bit of a beast, but it's now a real beast because on top of being a normal beast, it's now pushing up this as a new growth and another one over here. So two big strong new growths on here. Never bloomed for me. Those new growths are pushing out new roots as if it hasn't got a good root system already. So doing fine. I believe that's a Latoria type, but without looking it up I wouldn't swear to it. You'd have to look up the species rather than the hybrid. So that's that one. That's quite a big plant, that is. That's doing fine. But it would be nice to see some blooms on it, because I haven't got a clue what they're like. It's that one. And then this is Dendrobium prima donna, recently potted up. And we're doing okay. Good cane here, that's got its terminal leaf, so it's finished growing. And then we've got a new growth here and another one over this side of the plant. So it's heading off in two directions, recently repotted, roots weren't bad, and there's new root tips showing. So those two growths should mature, and that cane that's already mature could bloom any time. Prima donna's a funny one. It does have its spring blooming like most nobile types, but every now and again it decides to have another session later in the year on canes that have already pushed some blooms out under normal circumstances. So that's doing okay. Coming on, next we've got a rubbish plant, but it's growing. And this should never do well for me, quite honestly. It just shouldn't do well. And we're going to have to get the pliers out again. Can't get at it. Gotcha. A lot of it's because my hands are wet. Now this is Spectabile. Now this grows in quite hot, arid conditions. So it's often on rocks as well. But it does have a new growth. This did bloom for me once, and over this side of the plant is a stub, a nubbin that looks like it might push up a second new growth. It's lost most of its leaves, probably objecting to the winter cold. I don't know that. But if it's going to grow, you have to bear in mind within the climate, temperature range and all that an orchid is supposed to come from, especially when it's a species, we have to accept that orchids are adaptable. Now some are not. They're classed as fussy ones. In other words, they have a very narrow comfort zone, and if you get much outside of that, they're going to fail. It might be a slow failure, but it's a steady downward, hill sort of path for it. Others adapt and seem to do reasonably well. They'll never do brilliantly, but they do reasonably well outside of their comfort zone. That might be one. You never know. Right, next two. We're getting to the point on this shelf now where I just put the plants back. So I don't keep them over here because there's no room, basically, because we're into the bigger stuff now. Now this is a Brassia. This is not going to come out. It says because my hands are wet, I can't grip the pots. Right, you're going to come out now. pliers time. This is a nuisance, but I haven't got enough of that size tray to go upside down in all the pots. So we have to use the pliers and pull them out. It's a right pain. I hate having to do it, but then these pots don't get watered that often. If it was the mounts, I'd be... Right, Brassica. Which one is this? This is Vericosa Sea Breeze, named version of the species. Many new growths on here. They're pushing on fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 good strong new growths. It may attempt to bloom on those. One of them is pushing on quite well. One a bit farther behind, and then another 2 that are smaller. But it's growing fine, got a pot full of roots, it's doing great. Let you into a secret. That had, and may still have, fusarium. But it was treated. I would say it's growing out of it. Seems to be pushing up too much strong healthy growth for it to be still badly affected by that fungus. Seems to be doing okay. So that's that one. I'll just say these have to go back on the shelf as I do them because I haven't got room. And I can't put the rest of the shelf back until I've done these because these are at the back of the shelf next to the glass. Highlight orchids, Brassicas. Now this one's not doing as well. This is another Brassica, this is Santa Barbara. And it's pushed itself up out the top of the pot. Now what this needs doing, I'm going to put this to one side and not water it. What needs doing with this is it needs emptying out of the pot, yeah? Putting back in the pot and the media added back in with the plant down here instead of up here, so that all these nice new roots go into something, because at the moment they're aerial, they're not going to do any good. Nonetheless, it's got a good set of new growths coming on it. There's 2 in the centre of the plant there and another 2 round here. It needs getting down in the pot or it's not going to do anywhere near as well as it should. And you can see it's not doing that well because the older bulbs are quite badly shriveled now. So we will put that to one side and deal with it later. Stick it down there for now. So we're not putting that one back. Right, next one is a biggie. And this one's had, I don't believe it still has, but this one has had slug or snail eating it. Yeah? Now I don't know whether it's still there. The thing is, if it's a slug or a snail, it's only ever touched this plant. Well, it might have somewhere nice to sleep down inside here, because that's a pot jammed inside another pot with rocks holding it in place, because it will not stand up. It's so top heavy. So that's why it's in that big pot. And the slug and or snail could be in the bottom of the pot, so it only ever comes up on this plant. Nice big kiki growing on this one as well. This is Sweet Pinky Momoko, again nobly typed with lovely big blooms. And you know, some good kikis for somebody who might be getting some kikis soon. But it does have 3 good strong new growths coming out at the base as well. So it's doing fine. It's got a pot full of roots, but I'm not taking it out. Now if there is a single slug or snail hiding in the bottom of this pot, it would grow, wouldn't it? It would get bigger and stronger by gobbling my orchid. I'd have thought by now it would have stripped these leaves off, because it's not touching any plant nearby. So maybe it's dead. Maybe it wasn't what I thought it was, but anyway. I could take it all to bits and have a look, but at the moment I've got other things to do. If I take this apart, it took me ages to jam those rocks in such a way that this pot stopped falling over. Because it's seems to like doing that. I suppose I could just, if I just pop down in the shed and just put some slug pellets on around the base of the plant. If they're in, I don't know whether they'd be any good. They've been down in the shed for a long time. They're very old. They might not even work anymore. Right, next one is another one that won't stand up. Trip over the thing. Again, you can see it's a very, very tall plant in a tiny little pot full of roots, with new roots growing. So it leans up against another one, and this is banana chocolate and is my only remaining Phalaenopsis type dendrobium, and it's a biggie because these are not normally that big. They're normally a lot smaller. I don't think the blooms are magnificent, but they're okay. They're not that large, but they're okay. I haven't seen any for quite a long time, but it has bloomed. But what I like is these stripes on the cane, the purple stripes. Anyway, it's doing okay. Oh, and it has this new growth that's maturing and another one pushing out of the base, so it's growing okay. But again, it's another one that just will not stand up on its own. Several of these large dendrobiums that we're looking at now are on the repotting list because in their pots is some cocoa husk. So they're on the repotting list. They're also on the round to it list, and I haven't yet. I remember once seeing like a cartoon strip, I suppose you could call it, where somebody had a round disc with the words "round to it" on it, and basically the comment was, now that I've got a round to it, all those jobs should get done, which I thought was quite a good Mickey take. Now this is a dendrobium hybrid that wasn't what it was meant to be. If I'd known that, I wouldn't have got it, but I'm sort of stuck with it now. But it has good blooms on it. It's having a bit of fun at the moment. It's losing a few leaves, but it's got a new growth, just two new growths, just starting at the base there. So we've got new growths, new canes to come, but it just suddenly went mad and pushed up a cane an awful lot bigger than the previous canes. Probably a kiki at the top of that cane rather than buds. Seems to be what all the dendrobiums have been doing end of last year and this year. Reason unknown. Anyway, that's that one, another nobly type. It should have had blooms on it that were a fiery orange with yellows and tinges of pink. That's what it should have been. That's not what it ended up being. But the plant had had a hell of a job to get rid of, because I'm certainly not putting that in a box and posting it. It's huge. And now what we do now is we put all these plants back, balancing against each other, with one leaning on the edge of the conservatory. So that's that shelf done. We've still got water, so we will move down from the top shelf and do the next two. They go together. Right, I've just moved enough plants out of the way so that I can show you what I meant with this brassica. It's a very simple process. You carefully lift it out of the pot, like that, and tip the media out. So that it can get in deeper now. It's deeper in the pot. And then all we do is, in fact, it can go deeper than that. There you go. There's quite a few dead roots there. We just want to take them off, haven't we? I wasn't planning on messing about with it, but I'm just going to take these dead roots off the base. They're stopping it going down in the pot as well, so we'll whiz them off. We won't put them back in. Right, so yes, just plonk that back in, sitting on that media like that. And then just get this in around those roots. So there's no mixing up new media or anything, just plonk it all back in. There we go. Now those roots can get down in the pot, which is where they need to be. Now I've made a mess here, but I shall just get the hoover. Some will go in my rubbish bag and I'll just hoover the rest up and clean up the bench. Just going to push that down the sides a bit, hold the plant in place. The last few bits of bark in. There we go, job done. Now we'll water it. It can go back in its big black pot. And those new roots should do an awful lot better with some extra moisture around them and something to grow into, which will mean those new growths will push on better now. I doubt if the old shriveled bulbs will plump up. I would say they're too far gone. But there's more than enough new growths on here to get this plant going again. So there we go, that's that, and I'll be back in a bit. I'm having a coffee break. Right, so my coffee's boiling hot, so we'll move on to the next one. And this is Marfitch Renaissance Coral, I believe that's called, but the label's faded. Latest growth is pushing some roots out. It's not doing very well. It's not in a good place. But nonetheless, it's pushing out some new roots, and some of those have got down into the media. We'll see what it does, but what it needs is another new growth. There's a few rescues on this area. We're now down below the top shelf, so there's a bit of all sorts down here. And this is Miltonia Sunset, I believe. Yes, Miltonia Sunset. Most of my Miltonias are on this shelf. New growth here and previous new growth here that's maturing. I'm surprised that hasn't pushed a spike up. Maybe this one will push a spike up, but it's got roots. It's coming on okay. This is another one that had Fusarium a long time ago. I even started a playlist just for this plant, but things have moved on a lot since then. I mean, you know, that was years ago, and the plant's still with us and it's still growing new growths and roots. That one. Next one's got a spike. Might have to move shelves. This is Miltonia Summer Glory, and we have a spike on this one. It's only got a couple of buds and another new growth pushing on. I was just going to say it's probably two plants, but it's not. It's a plant that's heading in two directions. So it's okay. It hasn't got very good roots. Maybe that latest new growth will fix that. Previous new growth, the one with the spike, didn't grow many roots. So that's that one. That was bought for me by a friend when we went to the Rithlington School greenhouses, and I hired a minibus to take some people from the Bournemouth Orchid Society, and that was bought as a thank you by one of those people, a friend. Right, this is my apple blossom, recently repotted. Tiny little new growth down here that looks like it might fail, and a big strong one coming up in the middle of the plant. Not very good roots, but that latest new growth has got some. So no, not doing anywhere near as well as it once did. Possibly the scale are responsible for that. Now the scale are gone, but sometimes they leave a residual toxin that can stall the plant, eventually even take it down. They're nasty little critters, those. It's Wasduval scale that are the nasty ones. Now, you're still going to fit on that shelf with that spike. Let's have a look. Oh yes, easy. Still got another 3 or 4 inches to go before it hits the shelf above it, so we're okay so far. So I should have stopped the camera then, but there's only 4 plants. Right, next. This has got a problem. It might grow through it. This is my wildcat bobcat, and this latest growth is not at all happy. Not at all happy. Distorted. Not growing properly. It seems to be wanting to start a new one down there, but that one's not pushing on. For some reason, the repot stalled this and it's not happy. It was, but not anymore. It's not doing well now. We shall see what happens with this. It could grow through it. Who knows? It's got some roots growing. It's not like it's rootless, but that new growth has got a problem with it. It's not pushing on properly. And this is a very vigorous plant. Grows really big pseudobulbs. It could be that as it was pushing that new growth out, the repot just stalled it. As such. Right, so next one. This is Insa's Revenge. So this is Miltonia flavescens. It was repotted not long after I've got it. This is the latest 2 growths. The plant has split. Those are just starting to root. The other new growth at the back of the plant, I suggest, is not going to grow. It would have moved by now, I'd have thought. So this one is awaiting a decent root system. It hasn't got one yet. Came from Burnham's. Insa organised it from over in Frisia by contacting either Sarah or Arthur, Sarah probably, at Burnham's, and saying, when Roger gets there, can you present him with this plant and I'll pay for it for you. So it was a gift from Insa. Probably a little bit of a return. He's had quite a few plants from me, but then quite a few of those he did pay for, not like he got them for nothing. I think he's had some gifts as well. Right, now these didn't get watered last time round. These are my larger Miltonias. Yeah, they are quite dry this time round, so they will get some water. And this one is Spectabile, but it's a hybrid, it's not the species. The new growths are pushing on okay. You know, this was a plant, I do this with the larger Miltonias. I split the plant up and take the growing leads off, pop them up separately, awaiting the new growth to push on, then again let it bloom and then split again, because it grows across the pot at such a phenomenal rate. You'd have to have a pot 2 foot wide, and I haven't got the space to grow these into huge big specimen plants. But each of these new growths has a new split off growths has a new growth growing, and they are pushing out roots now. So but the fact that it's got quite a bit of moss in there to encourage that root growth, but the roots aren't there yet, and it's relatively newly repotted, with that amount of moss in it, it often goes 2 runs before it gets any more water. The pots, when I do water them, hold a lot of water, so it lasts them for 2 cycles. Eventually, when they get their roots going a bit better, then it won't do that. It'll start getting watered each time we get there. But not yet. There's another one, exactly the same. The end new bits were taken off, potted up as individual pieces to grow the new growths on. And this one is, where's the label, where's the tag? This is the Morelliana hybrid. It's not the species, but it's got quite a bit of that in it. New growths are pushing on all over the place on here, and they are producing roots. That is bordering on dry, but it won't make it till next time round, so it can have some now. This time of year with the long day lengths and everything, if a plant stays a bit wet longer than you would like, it's probably not going to do it any harm. You know, the active growth is in daylight, and the more daylight you've got, the more time it spends growing, the more it's going to use up what's in the pot. So that one. One more of those biggies. This is the oldest one, and the one that's not doing as well, and this is the actual species this time round, and this pot feels heavy. Yeah, this is Regnellii. This feels heavy. I'm going to give that a miss. I'm pretty sure that's still wet. Yes, it is. But nonetheless, the new growths are pushing on. Those new growths have got to mature. This is the plan. This is how I work with these. So the pieces were taken off. The new growths mature. They're not allowed to flower even if they try. The next set of new growths will be allowed to bloom should it choose to do so. But I'm not actually going to water that. It still feels a bit wet. And I put all these pots down here and buried me coffee at the back. There's two more on this rack, and these are recovery plants that may or may not be recovering. They may be dying. This is a Rhynchovola, David Sanders. Spectacular blooms, and I would love this to be a success. It does have some new growth activity down in the base of the plant. It's in the Cattleya Alliance, that one. Not an actual Cattleya, obviously. And somebody did say when they saw that, I think it was probably when I potted it up, and they said, that's a Cattleya, that needs a wet-dry cycle. Well, as a mature adult plant, yes, that's true. If you've got a plant you're trying to recover, you need moisture around the roots to get it going. Once it's got those roots, then you can start doing a wet-dry cycle. But if you've got a recovering plant that's struggling to get going and it goes bone dry for any length of time, it'll probably die. There's no substance in it yet. And then this is another one that's recovering. This came off a mount because it wasn't. Did it come off a mount? I can't remember. And this is a Brassoanthe. It used to be called BC Make, which everybody knew it as. And I don't know whether this one's going to make it or not. It did push up this new growth. Well, that's pathetic. You know, that's a weak new growth. No sign of root activity. I don't think that will make it, quite honestly. And that is the last one on that rack. I'm now out of water. So that'll be the end of the video. As I said, it gives you a chance, a very quick look at more plants than I can do any other way, and I kill two birds with one stone because I've now watered most of my potted plants. I was going to leave Derek's pots till tomorrow anyway, so I've now got that rack to the left of the door, the rack to the right of the door, and Derek's plants to do. So that will make, what I might actually do is, I might film that, do it tomorrow, I will have to get on with it, film it and make that Saturday's video because tomorrow is Project Orchids Day. So there'll be a Project Orchid video tomorrow, which won't get anywhere near as many views as this one might have done. Anyway, so that's that. The video will be long, I'm sure. And yeah, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.